Right, so earlier on today, I went out for a walk in town with the Olympus EM10 Mark II. And you may remember that I bought that camera almost 3 years ago, and it completely changed my opinion of the Micro Four Thirds system. But not only that, in the time since, that camera and the Micro Four Thirds system as a whole, I think, has made me a better photographer. Now, part of the reason I say that is because prior to me getting the Olympus EM10 Mark II, I was a full-frame Nikon shooter, and I was of the opinion that the bigger sensor, more dynamic range, better colours, blah blah blah, high resolution and all that, were what I needed with the be-all end-all. Check out that view. That's just amazing, isn't it? And you know, in my professional work, in the stuff that I do, I wanted that ability to, to crop and to, to be able to push and pull in post to get the look that any client may want, and full frame allowed me to do that. But what I didn't realise is that Micro Four Thirds, it's a weird system, because like my only experience with a Micro Four Thirds before the EM10 Mark II was a Olympus EPL3. And while now I can see the benefits of that camera and I could probably play to its strengths and understand its weaknesses, at the time I just thought it was crap. It was just like, it just wasn't good. Since then I've come to realise that, of course, Micro Four Thirds, they're not all the same, and you have those older cameras like the EPL3 and such as that. They're very much aimed at the consumer, and they are, comparatively speaking, not even in the same ballpark as something like the EM10 Mark II. This has changed a lot, by the way. The last time I was here, this path was all dirt and roots and just nasty, and it's been all relaid, and it's actually nice to walk on, which is cool, because I'm planning on going over there. The sun's not going to set for about another hour. I'm hoping, probably not going to happen, but we can but hope, but I'm hoping that cloud breaks and we get a little bit of colour. Because like I said, while I was out today shooting the street stuff, all I kept thinking about, because I was using the EM10, all I kept thinking about was that camera, and how part of the reason why I wasn't getting anything in the street today was because that camera has sort of, helped me develop my photographic eye, if you like. When you're using a camera which doesn't have all of the resolution and all of the color depth, and you can't push and pull it as much as you would like, you then learn to do all of those things in the moment. And while I could do those things in the moment, I didn't have to. So having full frame is brilliant. I still have full frame cameras, but I don't know, full frame makes it easy. Does that make sense? After I bought the Olympus EM10 Mark II in, I think it was October of 2022, I loved it, and it did completely change my mind about the system and made me want to know more about those types of bodies. And I subsequently bought the EM1 Mark II, which became my main camera for a long time. And I have since shifted over to Lumix for my work cameras, simply because of the video side of things. The G9 and the GH5 work fantastically together, and you're still getting pretty much the same photo capabilities out of the G9 that you get out of the EM1, so I haven't really lost anything. But I gave my EM10 Mark II to my youngest lad, who is now approaching 13. His tastes have changed. He isn't really using the thing. He's at the moment more into like music and art, which is cool, each to their own and all that. But that left the EM10 Mark II sat on the shelf doing nothing. So I've reclaimed it until he wants it again. I hope he doesn't want it again. I love that camera. Now, one of the things I noticed about this camera almost immediately when I got it is that even though it's a relatively tiny camera, even with my big dumb hands, it is incredibly comfortable to use, partly because of that little raised section, a little bit of a grip on the front, but that giant thumb bit on the back. It's just so easy to use, and because of the way those ergonomics work, you can quickly flip it from horizontal to vertical and get shots in a second. And it's just, I get shots with this that I wouldn't even try with another camera that feels different, if that makes sense. Now, I'm not sure that I'm going to get any pictures with this tonight. The light hasn't come back, but I don't care. I'll still try because I like the camera. I brought with me the 45mm f1.8. I've got the Lumix 9mm f1.7, and I've just got a kit lens with me, a 14-42 cheap plastic thing. Just to keep everything small and compact. It was what I took out with me on the streets today, but never really got much. I mean, I got a few things which you've probably already seen by this point, but yeah, nothing startling. But we're in like heather season, or kind of. I think I might have missed it, but there's still some bits of purple and stuff dotted about. So I'm going to try and get some more close-up type shots. I don't have a macro lens with me, but this 45mm 1.8, you can get pretty close with that. So still might get something nice. But yeah, I'm just taking the shot down there, but because we've got no light, it's kind of flat. Might make a nice black and white if you convert it to black and white, bump up that contrast a little bit, and make it a bit more dynamic. But yeah, I'm just enjoying it. I just enjoy this camera, and yeah, I'm just enjoying it. Now, a lot of my videos have been around using cameras, very basic cameras, older cameras, and making the best of them. And I stand by that. I think that's a great way to learn photography. But once you've been doing it as long as I have, you get to a point where all of the little refinements start to make more sense. And cameras like this, you've got that built-in in-body stabilization. Even on a camera like this, it's got 5-axis IBIS. It's something that I never used to have. Even in my early Sony full-frame cameras, they don't have any of that sort of stuff, and definitely not in the DSLRs. But then other things like the computational elements, which this has quite a few of, the live composite modes and things like that. The EM1 Mark II had even more. But it all serves to make life just that little bit easier once you've got over the basics and once you've learned the basics. So if I was going to say to anybody, on what system do you get into as a beginner, just go straight to Micro Four Thirds, because then you've got the best of both worlds. You've got the full manual controls that will give you all of the knowledge you need to learn how to use a camera, how to expose properly, how to create a nice image. But then you've got all of the computational stuff, much of which you'll be used to if you've been using a phone as well, in the camera. And then you've still got the ability to change lenses and get that superior image quality. I just don't see any real downsides to using a system like this, depending on your use case, of course. And when it comes to using Micro Four Thirds for professional work, don't let anybody tell you you can't do it. I know lots of people who do it. I have been doing it myself for the video side for the last year, and I've had absolutely no problems at all. And when it comes to image quality for photographs, the G9 is fantastic, and you've got that high res shot mode. If it's applicable to the scene and you do want that more resolution, it's there. Anybody saying that this isn't good enough for most uses hasn't used it. That's my opinion. I love it when you say things like that in a YouTube video and then you get all of the well actuallys in the comments. I'm like, come on. I use all of them. I use Micro Four Thirds, I use APS-C, I use full frame. I'm not saying that they don't all have their place and that some of them are superior in other areas, but there is no denying what Micro Four Thirds offers, especially if you go to the high-end models or higher-end models like the GH5 and G9 and beyond those, and like the EM1 Mark II and beyond. They offer so much in terms of functionality and ease of use, more importantly for many people, that you just simply shouldn't overlook them. Right then, light's not happening. I've paid for parking until midnight as well, stupidly, because I'm not going to be here that long. Let's go find some heather or something. All right, so just down here we've got this one heather branch kind of just sticking up above the rest, so it's giving us a more clean background, you know, so it doesn't end up so busy and messy. But it's got these nice little pinky purple flowers on it. The 45mm f1.8 will get you about 1/2 meter minimum focus distance, and if you're using 1.8, which I am right now because the light's starting to go away, it's going to give you some fantastic separation. So I'm going to take this shot, and then I'm going to have a look for see if there's anything else that I can get, you know, in this kind of light. So one final way why I think Micro Four Thirds, and this camera in particular, has made me a better photographer is in terms of attitude. When I was using my Nikon D800 with 36 megapixels, full frame sensor, loads of dynamic range, decent ISO performance, I would look at a camera like this and think, what the hell's the point? You know, sensor is 1/4 the size, it's got less than half the resolution, it's definitely not got anywhere near the dynamic range. But I was looking at those numbers in terms of like the max of those numbers, you know. Yes, it's got 36 megapixels, but do I actually need that? The answer to that is no. That 42 megapixel Sony that I've currently got, no, absolutely not. The only thing that resolution offers me currently for the way I work and for what I use it for is for cropping power. And if you're getting the compositions correct at the time of shooting, you don't need to crop. So that, you know, that resolution kind of means nothing. Now, when it comes to the dynamic range conversation, I think, like mine was, many people's understanding of dynamic range and how much you actually need is completely skewed. Realistically, I have two cameras that have like 14 to 15 stops of dynamic range. I don't think I've ever, on a single occasion, ever utilized that amount of dynamic range, simply because I have learned how to expose a shot properly, or as near as damn it to properly, in the moment when I'm shooting. So if you can do that, you're not going into post and pushing and pulling those sliders to get the most out of the shadows and dragging those highlights back and all that kind of crazy shit. Your photos are almost there already. So yes, you're going to get more detail in the highlights and you get more detail in the shadows, but if you expose them properly in camera, and again, don't forget things like bracketing exist, so if that's an option, bracket your shots, and every camera's got 15 stops of dynamic range. So it isn't really something that most people need. In fact, probably, I would guess I would probably get away with 8 stops, maybe. Now, you could go on and on about Micro Four Thirds versus APS-C versus full frame, but the fact remains, there is no perfect camera. I have multiple cameras for work because no single camera does everything I want it to do. It's just that simple. But cameras like this overcome a lot of their shortcomings when it comes to sensor size and ISO performance by implementing computational features, and it's even more apparent in the newer models like the OM1, OM1 Mark II, the OM5, etc, etc. The computational features in these are absolutely phenomenal, and I would urge anybody to give these a try. So my advice if you're going to try Micro Four Thirds is skip the really old stuff. If you're even remotely like I was, you will hate them all. You know, I've gone back to them since I bought a Pen Mini, and while it's basically the same as the EP3 kind of thing, I love it. I know what it's capable of, I know what I can do with it, and that's it. I don't care that it doesn't have all of this and all of that. That doesn't matter because that's not what it's for. If you want something a bit special, start looking at things like the EM10 Mark II, the EM1 Mark II, and anything newer than that in this system. And then the Lumix, probably anything from like the G7 onwards, I would go for it and see what you think. But yeah, I mean, don't ignore Micro Four Thirds. Like I said, I have full frame, I have APS-C, but I absolutely love these cameras.